For my brother's birthday, they rented a house on the lake, hired a chef, and invited all his friends, and for mine, a supermarket cupcake and a card that said, maybe next year. When I didn't say anything, my mother smiled dismissively. Don't be so sensitive. I just took a picture of their gift and booked a flight that night. My father texted me, "Where did you go?" My name is Alvaro, I'm 27 years old, and I've always been the quiet one in the family. Not shy or like a wilted flower, but the kind who learned early on that speaking your mind is usually met with a disapproving look, a sarcastic laugh, or a "don't be so sensitive" from mom. It wasn't always like this, or maybe it was, and I just didn't notice as a child. But now I see it clearly, especially this year on my birthday, when everything I'd been carrying beneath the surface for years finally overflowed. Let me back up a bit. My younger brother, Hugo, turned 25 in March. Our parents threw him what can only be described as a luxury weekend getaway. They rented a lakeside house 3 hours from the city, a modern glass cabin with a wraparound deck, jacuzzi, fire pit, private dock, the whole package. They even flew in 2 of his friends from out of province and hired a private chef for the entire weekend. The pictures were everywhere on Facebook. Mom captioned them, "So proud of our boy. Celebrating Hugo in style. He deserves the world." There were group shots toasting with champagne, fishing, playing poker, laughing around a bonfire. One picture was just of Hugo with the caption, "A king deserves a castle." I didn't like the photos. I didn't comment. I didn't say anything, really. But it was the first time I felt it in my chest. It wasn't jealousy, exactly, but a slow realization, a certainty creeping in. They wouldn't do this for me. Not because they couldn't, but because they wouldn't think I deserved it. Still, I let it go. Hugo has always been the golden child, loud, charming, effortlessly sociable. Me? I was the straight-A student, the one who never caused trouble, the one who stayed up late studying instead of sneaking out the window. And somehow, that made me invisible. But I thought maybe for my birthday, they'd do something, however small. My birthday was 2 weeks ago, April 5th. I took the day off, just in case. I didn't make plans with friends, didn't book anything on my own. I didn't want to spoil any surprises. Around 1 p.m., I got a text from Mom, "Come by the house when you can today." No exclamation points, no happy birthday, nothing. I sighed, but I went. I told myself maybe she was just being discreet, that maybe they had planned something small but heartfelt. I arrived around 3. Hugo was on the couch, looking at his phone. Dad was outside mowing the lawn. Mom was in the kitchen, humming. When she saw me, she smiled as if it were any other Tuesday. "Oh, hi Alvaro," she said. "You came." I stood in the doorway for a moment. "Yes, you said to come by." She nodded, wiped her hands on a dish towel, and opened the fridge. "I got you a cupcake," she said, placing it on the counter. It was one of those generic supermarket cupcakes, chocolate base, white frosting, no candle. She handed me a card, a plain white one, already half open. Inside was a folded piece of cardstock that read, in metallic letters, "Maybe next year." That was it. No personal message, no inside joke, just that. Hugo didn't even look up. I let out a small laugh, more of disbelief than humor. "This is it." Mom raised her eyebrows. "Excuse me. This is a supermarket cupcake and a card that literally says, 'Maybe next year.'" She leaned against the counter, arms crossed. "Don't be so sensitive, Alvaro. You're an adult. We figured you didn't need all the fuss." "But Hugo has been going through a rough patch," she blurted out. "And besides, he's more festive. You're so reserved, we thought you wouldn't want a big fuss." I stood there, still, the flimsy card in my hand, the cupcake starting to sweat under the fluorescent light. My face was burning, but my voice remained steady. "It's not about a big fuss. It's about the difference." She rolled her eyes. "Honestly, Alvaro, this is exactly why we didn't do anything. You always make everything about you." And that touched something deep. I'd spent most of my life justifying that kind of treatment, telling myself they meant well, that maybe I was imagining it. But in that moment, I understood. It wasn't me. It never was. I didn't argue. I didn't raise my voice. I just reached into my jacket pocket, pulled out my phone, and took a picture of the solitary cupcake next to the card. I looked at Mom and said, "Thank you." Then I turned around and left. I got in the car, drove straight to my apartment, and booked a flight to Valencia for the next morning. I'd been saving for a vacation for 2 years, waiting for the right moment. Well, the moment had arrived. That night, while I was packing, I got a text from Dad. No greeting, just, "Where did you go?" I didn't reply. Instead, I posted a picture on my Instagram, me in the airport lounge, boarding pass in hand. The caption read, "Birthday retreat. No chef required." In less than an hour, Hugo liked it. So did my cousin Neria. Then I saw that Mom had viewed my story. 10 minutes later, her name popped up on my screen. I let it ring, then silenced the call. I leaned back, took a sip of my drink, and waited for the next beep. It didn't take long. Another call, then a text. "Alvaro, this isn't funny. Call me." But I wasn't trying to be funny. I was done being the afterthought. I was finally putting myself first. And Valencia was just the beginning. I landed early the following morning, just as the sun was spilling gold over the terracotta rooftops. The air was cool, crisp, and smelled faintly of the sea and pastries. I took a deep breath as I stepped out of the airport. For the first time in a long time, I felt light. Not in a vacation kind of way, but like a weight I hadn't even realized I was carrying had been lifted from my shoulders. My hotel was a small place tucked between 2 faded pink buildings in the El Carmen neighborhood. It had crooked walls and a tiny balcony overlooking the city. The bed creaked when I sat down, the floor was ancient but clean, and most of all, it felt like mine. Like no one expected anything from me there. Like no one had already decided who I was before hearing me speak. I didn't answer my parents' messages. Not at first. Not even after the 4th call. I only reacted when I posted a picture of a pastel de nata on my stories with the caption, "King's Breakfast." That's when the tone of the messages shifted. First came confusion. "Are you in Portugal? Is this a work trip? You didn't say anything." Then came the guilt. We just wanted a quiet day. Hugo didn't even ask for all that. We thought he needed it. The card was a joke. "You're taking this too seriously." But Mom's last message stuck with me. "You always act like we treat you terribly, but you never say what you really want. Maybe if you talked more, things would be different." That's when I understood. She didn't get it. She never had. This wasn't about wanting balloons or a party. It was about years of being ignored, minimized, and told I was too quiet or too sensitive every time I tried to point it out. It was about watching them bend over backward for Hugo while I faded into background noise. They only acknowledged me when it was convenient for them, or when I stopped playing the role they had assigned me. The second night, I sat in a small bar, drinking quietly while a woman sang with tears in her voice. I looked at my phone. Her soft, aching voice played behind me. Finally, I texted Dad. I went somewhere where I matter. He didn't respond right away, but the next day I got a group text. It was from Hugo. "Dude, what's going on? Mom's hysterical. She thinks you've vanished or something. She's calling all the cousins, asking where you are. Why are you being so dramatic? It was just a cupcake. Grow up." I didn't reply to that message either. Instead, I opened Airbnb and extended my stay 2 more weeks. I started making lists of places I wanted to visit, maybe even hop over to Italy. I hadn't even told work I'd be gone that long. But after years of unused vacation days, they owed me. And I owed it to myself. By day 5, the narrative back home had shifted. My Aunt Esther texted me out of the blue. "I heard you're in Europe. Good for you. You deserve some pampering. Let me know if you want the family to back off." Then came another message from my older cousin Jorge, whom I hadn't seen in years. "Dude, I remember your 18th birthday. They gave you a card and a handshake." Hugo got a car at that age. Just saying. You're not crazy. I stared at that message for a while. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't exaggerating. I'd been normalizing being treated like an extra for so long that the moment I dared to speak up, everyone acted like I'd lost my mind. But there's something peculiar about space. It gives you perspective. And what I began to understand, as I walked down cobblestone alleys and watched sunsets over the Turia River, was that maybe I was never the problem. They just didn't like it when I stopped playing the part they expected me to play. On day 7, things back home reached a new level of hysteria. Mom posted a cryptic status on Facebook. When your children disappear without a word, you wonder if the world is upside down. It had over 60 comments. Relatives wrote, "Hope everything's all right," or "Call me." One even tagged me. I didn't respond. Instead, I uploaded a picture, me at a cafe by the window, sunglasses on, smiling. The caption read, "Sometimes the best birthday present is peace." Not 5 minutes passed before my phone rang. Mom again. I ignored it. Then another message arrived. This time, it wasn't from my parents or Hugo. It was from Dad's work email. "Alvaro, please call me. This is getting out of control." I sat back. Why would he email me from work? Almost immediately, another message arrived, this time from my boss. "Hey, your mom called the office saying it was urgent. Is everything okay?" My hands went cold. They weren't just panicking, they were escalating this, involving people who had nothing to do with it. And suddenly I knew. This wasn't about my birthday anymore. It was about control. About how they'd always kept me watched, defined, boxed in. And how now that I was stepping outside their mold, they wanted to yank me back, as if I was still, as if I couldn't have a life of my own, away from them. I took a deep breath, my heart pounding, and typed a final message. "You didn't care when I was in your house holding a cupcake. Just don't start caring now. I'm fine. I'm just not coming back the same." And I meant it. Because the old version of me, the one who tolerated the silence, the minimization, the guilt disguised as jokes, that Alvaro didn't come on this trip. He stayed back there, next to that sad cupcake on the counter. But the one who was sipping espresso under the Valencia sun, that one was just getting started. And the next thing I did made it very clear I wasn't asking permission anymore. The following morning, I woke up to a dozen missed calls. 2 from Dad, 3 from Mom, 1 from Hugo. The rest were unknown numbers, probably Mom calling from other phones, or worse, relatives she dragged into the drama. But I didn't care anymore. I was done being the dutiful son, the one who always kept the peace, the one who said, "It's fine," when it clearly wasn't. I wasn't going back to the same script where I showed up, was ignored, and ended up apologizing. After brushing my teeth, I went down to a small bakery near my hotel. The woman behind the counter greeted me like she did every morning, warm, cheerful, with a genuine smile. I ordered 2 pastries and a coffee and took a seat outside. The sky was a soft blue, dotted with clouds, and the street was slowly waking up. Neighbors sweeping their stoops, children walking to school, a man selling books from a wooden cart. I watched them with a sort of quiet envy. These strangers didn't know my name or my story or what I was running from, but they treated me better than my own family. And that realization hit me harder than I'd imagined. That afternoon, I did something I'd never done before. I turned off my phone, not on silent, not on do not disturb. I turned it off completely. I left it in the hotel room and walked out. I walked for hours, through winding alleys and open plazas, past ancient churches and murals bursting with color. I got lost somewhere near the Carmen district and ended up in a tiny gallery where a man painted scenes from his dreams. He looked at me and said, "You have sad eyes, but strong shoulders." I let out a laugh and told him that was probably the most accurate thing anyone had said to me all year. I didn't think about Mom, or Dad, or the cupcake, or Hugo and his luxury lake getaway. I thought about me, about who I was when I wasn't constantly shrinking myself to fit into the space they left for me. That night, I bought a notebook. On the first page I wrote, You are not selfish for choosing yourself. On the second, they only call it overreacting when they don't like your reaction. And on the third, I started a list of all the times I'd been sidelined. My 18th birthday. They forgot until dinner time. Gave me a card and a €20 gas card. Hugo got a party with friends and a cake shaped like a soccer ball. College graduation. They arrived late and left early for one of Hugo's soccer games, even though I was giving the valedictorian speech. Christmas 2 years ago. I bought thoughtful gifts for everyone. Hugo completely forgot mine. Mom said, "He's busy, don't make him feel bad." And the list went on. It wasn't about the gifts. It was the pattern, the unspoken message, you are not the priority. Not even close. The next day, I turned my phone back on. It exploded instantly. A barrage of messages, voicemails, missed calls. And to my surprise, screenshots. Someone had seen my Instagram post and sent it to the family group chat. Now aunts and uncles were weighing in. Some were sympathetic. Alvaro, I had no idea. That post broke my heart. You were always so quiet, maybe too quiet. Wish I'd said something. Others, not so much. Running away and airing family matters on social media isn't very adult. How dramatic. Everyone gets a cupcake birthday sometime. And then came the message that changed everything. Mom sent me a picture of my old room. The furniture was rearranged. The bed was gone. My books were in boxes. My desk replaced with a treadmill. The caption read, "Didn't think you were coming back. Figured we'd use the space. No, I love you. No, come back when you're ready. No apology. Just that." As if I were an inconvenience they were happy to be rid of. I stood there, staring at the screen, my jaw clenched, my heart hammering in my chest. And in that moment, something inside me snapped. It wasn't sadness. It wasn't anger. It was something colder, clearer. Resolve. I took a deep breath and typed a single message. Don't bother making space for me. I've already found my own. And then I did something they never thought I would do. I logged into my bank account. I'd been saving quietly for years, while Hugo bounced from job to job, relying on mom and dad every time his rent was due. I'd built something real, investments, a small side business that was growing, a financial cushion of over €100,000. And now I was going to use it. Not just for plane tickets and pastries, but for something bigger. A few phone calls, some paperwork, and a leap of faith. By the end of that week, I signed the lease on a small apartment in the heart of Valencia, brick walls, open windows, a writing nook overlooking the street. It wasn't luxurious, but it was mine. And then I did one more thing. I drafted an email. A simple, polite message. No anger, no drama. Subject, resignation notice. I explained that I was pursuing new opportunities abroad and thanked them for everything I'd learned. I didn't mention Mom, or her calls to the office, or how humiliating that was. But I think my boss understood. His reply came 10 minutes later. "We're going to miss you, Alvaro. But good for you. Live your life." And that was it. The ties were cut. No more family birthday reminders on the calendar. No more obligatory appearances. No more explanations for why I wasn't trying harder. I'd already put in all the effort, for years. Quietly, patiently, lovingly. And I was tired. But just when I thought the story had reached its quiet ending, just when I was starting to believe they would finally leave me in peace, something happened. Something that dragged me back. Something that made all the calls, the guilt, the silence, seem like child's play in comparison. And when I found out what they'd done, I understood. They weren't just trying to get me back. They were trying to act like I'd never been there at all. I found out on a random Thursday morning. I'd just finished my walk along the riverbank, coffee in hand, sun on my back. My life was quieter now, calmer. I'd settled into the rhythm of Valencia as if it had always been mine. I no longer checked my phone every few minutes, no longer jumped at every vibration, wondering what new emotional blackmail was incoming. I'd learned to live in the pause between breaths, to sit in silence without needing to fill it. But that morning, an email landed in my inbox. It was from Yvonne, an old friend from university. We hadn't spoken in almost a year, but I remembered he'd been close to Hugo at one point. The subject line was brief. Saw this. Thought you should know. The email contained a single sentence. Your brother posted this. Attached was a screenshot of a Facebook post by Hugo. The caption read, "Family isn't who leaves when things get tough, it's who stays. Proud to be here, helping mom and dad rebuild after Alvaro's betrayal." Below it was a picture, my old room, painted a sterile beige, the bookshelves empty. My university diploma, which had hung on the wall for years, was gone. In its place, a framed photo of Hugo shaking hands with a local businessman. The caption on that image, "New Beginnings." The comments were even worse. "Aunt Esther, so proud you've stepped up. Alvaro was always different. My cousin's wife, Marta, couldn't he just talk to the family instead of disappearing like that? So immature." And the worst, from my own mother, sometimes the prodigal son doesn't return. But the son who stays builds the future. My hands went numb. I read that sentence 5, 6, 7 times. They weren't just erasing me from the room. They were rewriting history. Suddenly, I wasn't the quiet, steady son who kept the peace. I was the son who ran away. The one who abandoned them. The one who didn't care. Hugo wasn't the golden child anymore. He was the savior, the martyr, the one who stayed to help mom and dad through their difficult time, a difficult time they had created themselves. But what hurt most was this. They knew I wouldn't defend myself publicly. They counted on it. They knew I hated drama, confrontation, spectacle. They counted on me watching silently from across the sea while they rewrote the truth. And that's when I made a decision. No more silence. No more disappearing to keep the peace. I opened my laptop and began to type. I didn't write a venomous post or one filled with rancor. That's not me. But I did write the truth. Calmly, carefully, like someone who, after years of being doubted, finally lays the evidence on the table. I posted it with no photo, just words. To those who have heard a story about me, here is mine. I didn't run away. I didn't abandon anyone. I simply stopped trying to earn the love and respect that should have been freely given by those who raised me. On my brother's birthday, our parents rented a lake house, hired a private chef, and celebrated him like a king. On mine, I received a single supermarket cupcake and a card that said, "Maybe next year." When I expressed that it hurt, I was told I was too sensitive. I took a picture of the gift, left quietly, and booked a flight to Valencia. That decision wasn't a tantrum. It was a boundary. For years, I played the role they needed, quiet, helpful, low maintenance. I watched as they ignored my accomplishments, minimized my successes, and dismissed my feelings. And still, I stayed loyal. I gave them the benefit of the doubt. I always showed up. Until I realized that continuing to show up for people who never show up for you isn't nobility. It's self-abandonment. Since I left, I've received dozens of messages, some kind, others cruel. Who do they say I should have talked to? I did. Many times. It simply didn't matter until I stopped playing their game. I don't need pity. I don't need applause. I just need the truth to exist somewhere where it isn't contaminated by emotional blackmail and half-truths. I didn't run away. I chose peace. And sometimes, choosing peace means walking away from those who refuse to see you clearly. I hit publish. And then I turned my phone off again. For 2 days. When I turned it back on, I wasn't prepared for what I saw. Hundreds of comments. Dozens of messages. My story had been shared, screenshotted, reposted. People, friends, distant relatives, even strangers, joined the conversation. This resonated with me so deeply. I've been the second-born sibling too. Thank you for saying what so many of us can't. This is what emotional neglect looks like, invisible until it becomes undeniable. But one message stood out. It was from Neria, my cousin on my dad's side. We hadn't spoken in years. "Alvaro, I always felt something was off with how they treated you. I just didn't know how to say it. I'm sorry. I see you. And I'm glad this came out. That was the beginning. The beginning of more voices daring to speak. Not everyone was on my side. Some doubled down on their criticism. Mom, predictably, posted another passive-aggressive message. There are those who expose their wounds instead of healing them. Hugo texted me once, "Congrats on your little moment in the spotlight. Always did love playing the victim." I didn't respond. Because I wasn't performing anymore. The performance was over. And then life started filling up with real things. I joined a writing group in Valencia. I got a part-time job editing English articles for a travel magazine. I started cooking again, something I hadn't done since college. I made friends. Real friends. Friends who knew nothing of Hugo, or the cupcake, or the house I used to live in. Friends who laughed with my jokes, not at me. Who invited me over without expecting anything in return. Who listened when I spoke. A month after the post went viral, I received an email from a publishing house. They'd read the story and wanted to talk about turning it into a book. At first, I hesitated. But then I remembered all the messages I'd received, people saying I'd put into words what they'd felt for years. Maybe my story wasn't just mine. Maybe it was a mirror for others. And maybe, just maybe, my voice, once considered too quiet, was finally loud enough to matter. I accepted the deal. A year later, my book was published in 10 countries. Maybe next year, choosing yourself when they never did. The dedication read simply, "To the kids with cupcakes and cards who waited for next year. Your piece doesn't need their permission." My parents never contacted me again. Hugo did, once. He sent me a screenshot of the book cover and wrote, "Hope it was worth the attention." I didn't respond. Because it was never about attention. It was about truth. And truth, when spoken clearly, resonates in places silence never could reach. And here I am, living in a sun-drenched apartment on a quiet street in Valencia, writing, laughing, loving. Not loudly. Not perfectly. But fully. Finally. And when April 5th rolls around each year, I no longer wait for a message. I buy myself the biggest, fluffiest cupcake from the bakery, with candles, with sprinkles, with a handwritten card I place beside it. The card says, "You deserve to be celebrated." This year. Every year. And, for the first time in my life, I believe it.